There is an epidemic happening in men today. Weakness and comfort has taken place of strength and purpose. Masculinity is labeled as toxic, and women are now the ones who define what a man is, more than men are. Weak fathers are raising lost boys who are at risk of never being initiated into manhood. We've grown farther and farther from God, which led us to become weaker and weaker. The man within fights back by introducing men to their true strength and purpose through God. So join me, and together we can restore true strength and purpose in men. Hello, and welcome back to the Man Within podcast. So happy to have you guys here with us today. If this is your first time joining the Man Within is all about men helping men in faith, fitness, finance, business, career, getting over their fears, finding some more confidence, anything and everything that a man needs help with. That is what we are here to do. So if you just stumbled upon this page, thank you so much for joining. Stick around. We've got some really good stuff to talk about today. So with all that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. So guys, there are a lot of misconceptions and lies that the world tries to teach us. One of the most dangerous lies being the idea that we can and should pursue a life of comfort. The world has us believe that comfort and immediate self-gratification, this self-indulgence culture, that's the highest form of achievement. It glorifies a life of ease that requires absolutely no sacrifice or pain ever again. Everything comes easy and we should have whatever we want, whenever we want, because we're entitled to it. And the best part of that, there's absolutely no pain or sacrifice required. But life doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as life without pain. As long as you are alive, you are going to endure some suffering and some pain. Being on this earth, this is a painful experience that does require suffering. There's no such thing as pleasure without pain. Pain either comes before or after pleasure. And what I mean by that is God works in short-term pain for long-term pleasure, and the enemy works in short-term pleasure for long-term pain. The only way to have a life where everything is perfect is to remove anything that could potentially be uncomfortable or inconvenient for you. That means you can't have kids, you can't have a wife, you don't work, you don't have any responsibilities. The only thing you care about, the only thing you need to care about is yourself and your own well-being. You may have everything this world has to offer, but at the end of that dream where there's no pain, there's no discomfort, everything is just convenient and it's immediate for you. But at the end of that dream, you'll find out life without responsibility has absolutely no meaning. And you'll find that there is no finish line to this life. There's no end date. There's no end goal. You either find yourself, because we're humans, we find ourselves wanting more and more. The more we have something, the more we want of it. Now you can either go two directions. You either want more and more things of the world, more material things. You want to try to get full of the world, or you want to take the godly path and you want more and more of God. But only one of those paths will actually give you fulfillment. God's path will bring you all the joy and the fulfillment that you could ask for. The more you get of the world, the emptier you feel, because you separate yourself more and more from God and more of meaning and purpose that only God can give you. But the more and more you get of God, the fuller you feel, the more joy, the more peace, the more fulfillment, the more of these eternal gifts. And when you go God's path, you get more of that than you could ever ask for, than you could ever comprehend. The only requirement on God's path is pain, a little sacrifice, and growth. And that's the topic I want to talk through today. So today I want to give you 3 reasons why growth is important and why it's absolutely necessary. And the real question is that, I've kind of been thinking through that I know a lot of people are struggling with, especially in today's time, in today's world. If we have everything that we need, what's the point of growing? In today's world, it seems like there's really no need for sacrifice. So what's the point of growing? What's the reason for putting myself through all this unnecessary pain. So the question is today, why do we have to grow? And I'm going to give you 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is it's part of God's plan. God has many plans for us, bigger plans than we could ever come up with on our own. In Jeremiah 29:11, God says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, plans for welfare and not for calamity, but plans to give you a future and a hope." His plans for us are greater than anything that we could ever imagine, anything we could come up with ourselves, which is another reason we want to go on God's path and not our own. But if his plan for us is greater than where we are now, that means we need to become more than who we are now. And what that really means is we must go through a tough molding process and allow God to shape us into the man he needs us to be in order to pursue that plan he has for us. But guys, this is a good thing. This is how men grow. We grow through tough molding, sharpening, just like in Proverbs, iron sharpens iron. We need challenge. We need risk in order to grow. That's how God designed us. This will be a very painful process, and it will take all of our might, all of our strength to stay in the fight. But that's why God gave us a warrior spirit as men. We're not just going to have to fight physically. We'll have to fight mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in every way that we can imagine. We'll have to work longer hours. We'll have to learn how to be patient, more patient than we want to be. We'll have to learn how to let go of control and surrender, which is one of the hardest things for men to do because as men, we have a lot of pride. And we'll need to accept when things don't go our way and adapt to all situations, whatever God decides to put us in. Now, if this sounds tough, that is a good thing. God is a perfect father who wants his children to be tough. Well, guess what? There's nothing tougher than being one of God's children. There's nothing tougher than living God's way. God, being the perfect father, wants to put us through tough things. In order to be tough, we'll have to go through some tough things. In order for God to trust us with his plans, I mean, what plans are more important than God's plans himself? In order for God to trust us with his plans, we'll have to show that we can be trusted. God won't reward us for being disobedient. We can't go and do our own things. We can't choose the path of comfort and just expect God to reward us and give us everything that we want, anything that we ask for. If we're just disobedient, God, being a good father, isn't going to reward us. If God places us in a battle, our job is to trust that he'll get us through it and that there is purpose behind it. If we stay on God's path, he'll place us where we need to be at just the right time. He'll use a season of difficulty to equip us with the tools we need for the next part of his plan. If you stay on his path, you'll never have to worry about which battle to fight. You'll never have to worry about where to go. He's already got that covered. He's planned it out well before we arrived here on earth, according to Ephesians 2:10. The battles will get tougher as we get stronger. If we avoid going through something difficult, we lose an opportunity to get stronger. And that's what most people do, which is why most people are average. But you should be happy when you get a chance to do something incredibly difficult because the harder the battle, the greater the reward. If you do something others won't, you'll have something others don't, which makes you more valuable. And guess how you get more financially valuable is by making yourself more valuable. So if you do increasingly more and more difficult things, you'll become increasingly more and more valuable, which is God's plan for you. So it may not be easy to do things God's way, but that's how us as men were designed to grow. So that was number 1. So reason number 2 why some pain and growth are necessary for us is that an environment that requires no sacrifice will destroy a man. And I'm speaking out of experience in this one. One of the worst problems a man can have is being in an environment that requires no sacrifice. It is completely anti-masculine. It will strip him of his human nature and his core identity. A man must have responsibility and something to sacrifice for in order to grow. That is the masculine way. That's how we as men were designed. Otherwise, if we don't have that, he'll slip into a very soft and feminine role, which is just as destructive for him as being in a masculine role is for a woman. It's not living the way God designed us. It's not living the way God designed for him. And when you live outside of God's plans, you'll be met with ungodly consequences. And I can tell you this from experience. I lived in a very feminine state for a long time. I lived in a world where I tried to make everything as comfortable for myself as I possibly could. And I was afraid to take risks. I didn't want to step outside my comfort zone. It was very anti-masculine. And guess what? I didn't know who I was. And it felt like life had no meaning. Guys, it's not a place where you want to be. You've got to step outside of this belief that you need comfort. You don't need that. What you need is God, and what you need is to get on his path and step up and be a man, act like a man, and be willing to do some difficult things. That's where the freedom is. That's where life is. That's where you as a man thrive. But today in our safe world, it appears as though all of our needs can be taken care of without any sacrifice. It's a very soft, comfortable world we live in that has been telling men, we don't need you anymore. We don't need men anymore. We don't need your strength. We don't need their masculinity. All of that is now toxic and wasteful. But the people who are telling us this are so lost in their own egos that they blind themselves from the truth. Despite what our society would have us believe, there is still very much a need for strong men, and there always will be. If you take away all the strong men, all you do is put yourself in a position where you need strong men. Because guess what? Listen to this. Humans aren't perfect. Therefore, this world will never be perfect. There will always be war. There will always be danger. There will always be evil in this world. Do you really want to live in a world that's run by evil without any strong, God-fearing men to protect you? If you really want peace, you need to place power in the hands of good, strong men. What I mean is, if the guy that wants peace has more power than the guy who wants war, war will be much less likely to happen. There is one presence that wants peace, and there's another presence among us that wants war. Jesus is the Prince of Peace, while the enemy is only here to steal and kill and destroy, according to John 10:10. The force that gives us true power is God. God gave us a spirit of strength and of courage, not of fear, not of cowardice. God's strength, God's power, the spirit lives within us. That same powerful spirit. In order to tap into that power, we must sacrifice, keyword sacrifice, the desires of our flesh and choose the path of most resistance. Being on God's path is going to take a lot of resistance. It's going to take bearing a lot of insults. It's going to take bearing a lot of ridicule and being forsaken by the world. But God will show us the path, but we still have to make that choice. The choice to always go in God's direction. And in his path, the pain is temporary, and it'll be over sooner than you think, which also means his blessings are a lot closer than you think. So that was reason number 2. Men need to put themselves in an environment that requires some responsibility and some sacrifice. And the third reason why a little pain and growth are necessary for us is because it's the path to fulfillment. To fulfill means to complete one's duties or to bring something to completion. And the ultimate thing that we are looking for is fulfillment. And God wants to give us that. He promised many things for us by use of a covenant. Well, a covenant is just a contract with God. In order for a contract to be signed, two parties have to agree to fulfill certain duties. Well, God outlined his part of the covenant in Leviticus 26:9 and many other times in the Bible. And he says in Leviticus, I will look on you with favor and make you fruitful and increase your numbers, and I will keep my covenant with you. That's just one of those many promises. So God has promised us many things, but I broke it down into 4 main duties for God on his side of the covenant. So God's duties are as follows. He didn't put us here without giving us a purpose. He's not going to place us on this earth without telling us what to do. Number two, he'll never leave us nor forsake us. Three, he'll give us what we need in order to achieve his purpose for us. He will equip us with the tools that we need at just the right time. And number four, he wants to help us, but that requires a little effort on our end. So God will fulfill all of his duties, everything that he's promised us. He will take care of all of our needs, not our wants, but our needs. So what is our side of the contract? Well, our only job, our only duty is to trust him and to be obedient. God's formula for growth isn't quick. It involves short-term pain and sacrifice for long-term pleasure. Now think about the process like a staircase. At the top of the staircase is your ultimate vision. Each step of the staircase is another level you have to achieve. In other words, each step is another test of your strength to see if you're ready for the next step. Well, God is a teacher, which means he's going to test every part of us along the way. You can't just tell your teacher you understand the material without being tested on it, right? Well, the same goes for God. So each step on the staircase is just another level of you. To grow means to go beyond the current version of yourself. And God doesn't skip steps. He doesn't take any shortcuts because he wants to take his time with you. You are very important to him. The purpose that he's got you on is very important in his plan. So he's not going to put you into something that you're not ready for. Now, the thing about the staircase is that there is no finish line. As humans, we have this inherent need to get more and more. We have this inherent need to be fulfilled. So we think of fulfillment as filling up our lives with stuff. But when we do that, we find there's no end to it. There's no end to the wanting. As we get more and more stuff, things of the world, we find we want more of it. But think about it like this. When one need is fulfilled, it opens up an opportunity for the next need to be fulfilled. As soon as one goal is met, the first thing we do is look for the next one. Because in the process of reaching the first goal, we've become a totally different person who is capable of bigger things and bigger goals. If our basic needs are met, like our food, water, shelter, we move up to love and belonging. Once those are met, we move up to self-understanding, trying to understand the world as well. And once that's met, we move to self-actualization and ultimate fulfillment. And if you're lucky enough to get there, if you're lucky enough to get to that stage of self-actualization and fulfillment, you'll realize that fulfillment is actually in the work. The fulfillment is the journey. The journey is the fulfillment. So when you start off by trying to avoid the work, only to find out the magic is in the work you've been avoiding. That's where the fulfillment comes from. If we want to act like all of our needs are already taken care of here on earth, we won't grow because there is no finish line for growth. You can't find the fulfillment on earth. You can only find it through God. And the sooner we realize that and accept it, the sooner we can enjoy the process of growth. The sooner we can just enjoy the journey that God has us on. We don't serve our purpose serves us. So that's where the true fulfillment comes from. And if we're looking at the staircase, most people don't get anywhere near fulfillment, which is a tragedy, because they took a completely different staircase. They weren't even on God's staircase. They took the worldly and comfortable route that only had a few steps, and everyone else was on it. They took one look at God's staircase, which was narrow and tall, and said, I'll get to it later, but they never do. It's a lot harder to start when you're at the bottom, looking at the top of a never-ending staircase. When you look at the step that's just right in front of you, it might seem so small, it might seem so insignificant, and you know that you can do it. It might be painful, but when you look at these small steps, it seems impossible that a million little steps could ever get you to where you want to go. But your job isn't to worry. Your job isn't to count the number of steps. Your job is just to get to stepping. And I want you to understand that not every step on that staircase is a painful one. Jesus didn't come to give us pain. He came to give us peace. He's the Prince of Peace. Growth is fulfillment. The journey is the destination. There is purpose to your pain. We are not here to exercise our own desires or exercise our own will. We are here to fulfill God's plan. We were paid for by Him and we belong to Him. Anything and everything in this world belongs to Him. Anything we have in this life and anything we will have already belongs to Him. So let go of control, because the truth is, you don't really have control. And the more you try to control things that you can't control, the more stress you're going to have in your life. It's a good thing that we don't have control. It's a good thing when we don't exercise our own free will and we choose to exercise and trust in the will of God. So thank you so much for listening. If you got any value from this, please like and subscribe, and let me know if there's any topics you'd like to learn more about, and drop that below in the comments. So thank you guys again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.